the entertainment highlight of the week.
Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
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 Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Good night.
Good evening.
Good sausage roll.
Good tidings.
Good orange squash.
Good custard.
Good nights.
Good pasties.
Ooh, they are. Ah, goodness.
Loch Ness.
There we go, never mind. A good bout, that one.
Too tempted by a pasty. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Loch Ness game. It wasn't about Loch Ness, and it's not a game.
But this is the Benji and Nick Show. I'm not Nick.
And I'm not Benji.
But we talk about cult television, TV from the past, TV you might remember, TV you might want to forget, all kinds of gems from the good old days. And what are we talking about this week, Nick?
Well, we're chatting about Press Gang, the fondly remembered children's programme from, was it the 1980s?
1989 to 1992, I believe. I'll just double check that. Could be 93.
1990, written by Stephen Moffat. 1993. Oh, right. We watched the first episode on BritBox. It's now available there, of course. That's why we watched it. Jamie Anderson will be along later just to chat to us generally. And in a moment, we'll be reading out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. We'll also be asking you some questions for you to answer in your emails, I think. But first, the Benji and Nick Show is proud to be sponsored by The Village Shop, the online e-store run by the Unmutual website and Coit Media Limited, your one-stop shop for all things Prisoner, Danger Man and Patrick McGowan, including DVDs, Blu-rays, books, CDs, audio dramas, clothing, photos, homeware and gifts. New items are added weekly. Benji and Nick Show listeners can enjoy a 10% discount on all purchases by using the code LOCHNESS10. That's LOCHNESS 10. All one word, capital letters, no spaces. Use that at the checkout. A further donation will also be made to Hope House Children's Hospice at no extra cost to you. The address of the Village Shop is slightly confusingly www.theprisonershop.co.uk. Yeah, it's a shame it's not The Village Shop, but there you go. The Prisoner Shop, all one word, .co.uk. Should we have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Available there? While Benji's looking, I'll tell you there's also a new offer through the Village Shop, which is using the code YouOldFool, which is what Benji often calls me, quoting Ian Chesterton from the Daleks. If you quote that code, you can also enjoy 40% discount off the 550-page book The Callan File, the definitive guide to the classic TV series written by Robert Fairclough and Mike Kenwood. So there you are, a special offer there. What have we got? What have you found, Benji?
This is one that I just couldn't resist not getting up, really. It's a 5.5-foot rover balloon.
Oh, yes.
You can get your own rover on here for 30 quid. Proper job.
There's a middle-sized one you can get. We bought one because they're just weather balloons, basically.
They are iconic weather balloons.
Yes. So we bought one for the middle-sized one for the recording of the first series of the audio Prisoner. And we sort of put it, there's a photograph, we used a lot of it sitting on a stool with headphones on top of it and a microphone like it was recording. I think it was Joe Smith who actually arranged buying that. Sounds
like a very Joe Smith sort of thing, a friend of ours.
The bizarre thing, exactly, yes, who shall remain anonymous. Oh, hold on, we've named him. The bit where you put the air in has a very prophylactic quality to it. Anyway, we'll go no further than that.
There you go, you can get that from the store. I think, well worth it.
Definitely. You might also like to have a look at nicholasbriggs.com, which every week I complain that no one's buying anything from my site.
Has anybody bought anything this week?
Yeah.
Hey.
It's working. Every time I complain, one person buys something. So thank you. It was a photograph this week, so I'm very pleased about that. So thank you. Anyone else wants to buy anything from my site, please? nicholasbriggs.com. How could you forget that?
Iconic.
First, now we'll go to your emails. First up, a Facebook message from our good friend Steve Hatcher at the Hoovers in Derby. You might be interested in this, Benji. He says, nice to hear mention of the Midland Railway where the Tugs models are, which was mentioned last week. A series called Tugs about Tugs, on the Benji and Nick show. He says, "You realise you've been there?" So Steve, "It's the Heritage Railway Centre where we held the first 2 Hoovervilles. You were at Hooverville 1 conventions, of course. Hope you and yours are all keeping fit and well," says Steve. I wrote back to him and said, "The only thing I remember about that place is the dreadful smell. There was like a sewage leak or something. There was something awful going on, and the place it was horrific."
Oh, gosh.
So that's all I remember about it, really.
So I have lovely, happy memories of the place. It's a beautiful little line with a lovely little cafe.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that. I do remember I got into a Dalek, one of those ones that was sort of based on a mobility scooter inside, and I had a fantastic time whizzing around in it. Had a built-in ring modulator, so I went and heckled a few panels.
I just want to check one thing. Is Butterley on the Midland Railway Centre? Yes, it is.
Butterley.
There's Butterley is yes. Oh my god. Okay, so I've got a funny thing here. When we first started doing the Tugs, we had an event on there, and the event was, we wanted to be on site, and so they said, "Oh, you can kip in one of our railway sheds."
Oh.
And so this massive, ancient old building, and so there's a group of probably about 7 to 10 of us, and we said, "Yeah, right, we'll do that. I'm sure it'll be fine." Anyway, worst night's sleep of my entire life. I was on the floor, I had a roll mat and a sleeping bag, and it was in this massive, freezing cold old engine shed, and it was just, when the birds flew and sat on the roof, you could hear above the girders all creaking, and if you wanted to go to the toilet, it was outside in pitch black. And me being classic me, I was the only one who, after one night, because they had to do another 2 nights in there.
Yes.
And I decided, I just got up and said, "Look, lads," I said, "I'm going to be the one to do this, but I'm heading into town." I think I went into Tamworth. I think it was Tamworth. I headed into town, and I got myself a nice inn, and I lived the life of luxury. Oh, a lovely old inn.
What sort of place was it? Was it an old one?
It might be called is it called the Red Lion?
Lovely. Right up your Strasser, mate. I stayed at not Travelodge. What's the other one? The one that Lenny Henry used to advertise.
Premier Inn.
We stayed at a Premier Inn.
Good old Premier Inn.
Ben, my son, was only a baby at the time. And
was
I remember
Annika.
And Annika Wills, when I said, "Oh, this is my little son, Ben," she went, "Oh, of course, Ben and Polly." Yeah. So she naturally assumed that I'd named him after Ben in Doctor Who. I thought, yeah, I know I'm sad, Annika, but that is not the reason why my son is called Ben.
She just thinks you're a super fan.
But she absolutely, there was no question in her mind.
Oh,
there's probably never a question in her mind. Anyway. So that was all about Tugs there. Have you found the pub yet?
I have, yeah, the Red Lion Tamworth.
It is the Red Lion.
Yeah,
right,
yeah, remember it well. Lovely it was.
So yes, the Tugs thing was brought. There's more Tugs here in the first email, which I'll read out to you.
It's a hit. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, it's from Jessica Mathis, who wrote about Tugs last time. Her email this time was sent on the 12th of May in the year 0909. What was that, Romans? Hi, Benji. In the previous episode of the podcast, you mentioned that you have communicated with the cast who've been involved in Tugs. Would you know, perchance, the actress who voiced Lily Lightship, Sally Seaplane, and Pearl the Oyster Barge? None of the episodes credit her, and it's been up for discussion who voiced them. How about that?
So I used to. This is awful because I'm not going to be able to answer a question, but I did used to know who it was. I also know that she
used to.
The song at the end of the last episode, I think it's called Big Freeze. She actually ended up singing the song to that as well. It was the same.
You can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name for the life of me.
Can you think of anything else she'd done, and we could find her through that?
Let's have a look.
And also, any chance of ever allowing the public to hear the Brian Blessed version of Captain Star from Tugs? Jess.
Brian Blessed doing Tugs?
It was just that.
Could have been me.
I can't remember for the life of me. I can't even track down. Oh, Sue Glover. There we go.
Sue Glover. How did you track her down?
I found it on the Tugs wiki, no less, by going in. It says that she recorded the song of Vienna's farewell song in Big Freeze, but I'm sure
she did those other voices.
Did the voices. Yeah,
she wasn't credited. No one credited for those parts.
I'll double check because now.
Welcome to the Tugs podcast.
Now I'll have to double check now. I'm sure it was her, but I could be wrong. Voice actors, Joe Good, apparently, is Lily, so maybe I was wrong, but I don't know who that is, but that's what it says on the internet.
Joe Good, well...
Radio presenter, British radio presenter, Joe Good.
Joe Good. Let's see if Joe Good is a going concern as an actor now.
BBC Radio London. So I've just made up a load of things. It's actually a completely different person.
There's Joanne Good. Is that Joanne Good?
It could be. I mean,
Joanne, yeah.
Joanne Good, yeah, radio presenter.
Yeah, she's represented by the same voice agency that represents me, funnily enough.
As for the Brian Blessed thing, I'm sorry if that was all so vague. As for the Brian Blessed thing, I can't really say a lot about that. The Tugs Trust have got all of these assets and bits and bobs, but they're very careful about who sees it, because I think they're sort of quite involved with the rights holders of Tugs, and so I think they've got to be careful about what they put out there. But it does exist, so that's really all I can say about it. The only other thing is that all of the Tug stuff I got all the tapes and stuff transferred at Channel 4 in their headquarters through a friend of mine, so in some weird, strange, convoluted fashion it ended up in Channel 4.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to tackle this next huge...
Certainly. I got one here. It's from Michael Herbert.
Michael Herbert sent on the 6th of the 5th, 2020 at 1300, straight on the dot, and it says here, hello from lockdown Lancashire.
Oh.
I actually made a Lancashire hot pot last night for my dinner, and it was lovely.
Did you lock it down?
I did lock it down, and then I threw it away. No, it was very nice. I ate all of it. It says here... I just moved my chair around without even...
Is that what it said?
Yeah. I've enjoyed listening to... It says, Dear Nick and Benji, I've enjoyed listening to the show whilst working on updating my biographical post on Malcolm Hulke.
Oh.
One of his relatives kindly sent me copies of a family bulletin which Mac wrote and typed up in 1938. I've attached a copy below at the foot of this email of one from January 1939, when he and his mother were living in Deal and his aunt had just died. I was born in 1955, so grew up at the same time as television grew up. I began with Watch with Mother, of course, my TV apprenticeship. After that, I can remember watching shows such as Robin Hood, Sir Lancelot. I love it. What was it? Now listen to me, in days of old and love for told, something like that. William Tell, The Scarlet Pimpernel, Treasure Island, etc. Perhaps this accounts for my lifelong passion for history. Some of these history shows were made by Hannah Weinstein, whom I came across whilst researching a course I teach on radical women in the 20th century. She was an active Democrat who left the USA in 1952 because of the McCarthyite witch hunt, apologies there, not just of CP USA members, but of anyone with progressive opinions. In England, she set up Sapphire Films, which produced The Adventures of Robin Hood, The Buccaneers, The Adventures of Sir Lancelot, The Sword of Freedom, and The Four Just Men. I think most of those you can get at Network, actually, on DVD, yeah.
Wow.
Certainly Robin Hood, Buccaneers, and Lancelot. She hired a number of blacklisted American writers, such as the wonderfully named Ring Lardner Jr., Ring Modulator Jr., who later wrote, Robin Hood gave us plenty of opportunity for oblique social comment on the issues and institutions of Eisenhower-era America. Oddly, as a 5-year-old, I missed this subtext. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Hannah returned to the USA in the 1960s and later produced films such as Claudine, with a mainly black cast, Greased Lightning, and Stir Crazy. As children in the 1950s and 60s, we watched a huge amount of imported American shows, in no particular order: 77 Sunset Strip, Rawhide, Rollin', Beverly Hillbillies, Bewitched, Bonanza, I love Bonanza.
Wow, Beverly Hillbillies. Do you remember that?
I do remember the Beverly Hills. And Bewitched, of course. Bonanza.
Bonanza with the famous burning map.
So good. Mr. Ed, the talking horse. You can. I think that. Do you know that's all on Amazon Prime on demand for some reason. You can watch that. My Favourite Martian, Lost in Space. Big fans of Lost in Space here. Time Tunnel, The Invaders, etc. I was also a devotee of the Jerry and Sylvia Anderson shows from Four Feather Falls onwards. I need to sit down and watch that. I've never seen Four Feather Falls. But
I wouldn't try.
Oh dear. My favourite is probably Captain Scarlet. Dum, 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 dum. In the early 60s at Saturday tea time, I was watching a show called Gary Halliday with Terence Longdon, playing a pilot who gets caught up in various adventures. This went off and was replaced by something called Doctor Who. What could this be? So I watched the first episode twice and have been hooked ever since. I enjoy the new show, but I must confess my heart is in the 1960s with Bill Hartnell and Pat Troughton. I'm still mildly disappointed that Doctor Who does not follow Grandstand and is not followed by Jukebox Jury. Now, Jukebox Jury is a show that should come back, actually. Here are some suggestions for future shows. The Slide, a radio series by Victor Pemberton.
I remember Victor speaking to me about that, yeah.
The Stranger, the Australian 1960s science fiction series.
We had a look at that, didn't we?
We had a look at that, yeah. The War of the Worlds, the 1938 broadcast. The original, you might say. The Corridor People, made by Granada in 1966, as their attempt at the Avengers-style series. It's devised and written by Edward Boyd. Feels like they broke into the Granada studios after hours and filmed whatever they wanted.
Yes,
got to have a little look at this.
I remember ex-Doctor Who magazine editor Gary Gillett said he was watching the Corridor People and thought, this is just like, what the hell? It's so crummy and old and not about anything at all. And he said he suddenly had a flash and thought, this is what people who aren't Doctor Who fans think when they watch old Doctor Who. They just go, what is this? What? You know.
All I can see is a man inside a baby's pram rolling a silencer onto his gun whilst a Victorian-style maid pushes him around.
Good Lord. That's
and now he's about to shoot a man, and now the man's dead.
Have you noticed that all the camera cuts in it make the picture wobble?
Like proper old school click, isn't it? Yeah. Click, click, click. I tell you, the one thing I would say in their defence is that they did use the correct gun silencer sound, which not many people actually. They always use that one in the Bond films. That's like a sort of. It's either or, but actually the real gun silencer sound was more of a snap, like a kind of.
Oh,
that's kind of what it sounds like. Yeah, very bizarre, the Corridor People. I look forward to future shows. Yours sincerely, Michael Herbert.
That's very interesting.
Editor of the Fantasies of Possibly Science Fiction blog, which you can find on WordPress. Great message, that one. Thank you so much for sending that in.
Brilliant
a lot of
stuff.
food for thought
there. Next one, subject is TV series not yet released. It was sent on the 30th of April, actually. It's going back a bit, in the year 0008. And it's from Neil Allen. Hi, Mr. Benji and Mr. Nick. You were asking last week for shows that have not had a UK DVD release in the wilderness year of 1998 before New Doctor Who, but after Old Doctor Who was Invasion Earth. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
A 6-part gritty science fiction series made by the BBC about an alien invasion of the Scottish Highlands. It had a big budget and I think was the BBC's answer to the X-Files. X-Files? Hello. I did manage to get a DVD of the series, but it's an American release disc, so it won't play on my player. Sure, doesn't everyone have multi-region players anymore? And I've not got round to buying a multi-region player. Okay, fair enough. I should have read the rest of that sentence before making that.
I feel like it's easier
comment.
with Blu-ray to get multi-region than it is with DVDs.
Do you feel that? I mean, you can play DVDs on Blu-ray players, can't you, anyway?
I suppose you can now. Maybe I'll have to try. I used to have a copy of Give My Regards to Broad Street, you know, that Paul McCartney film.
It's, my favourite movie.
You know, one of my best, I actually don't think he likes it. Because, if he liked it, he'd release it in the UK. But the man's a coward, He doesn't want to release it here. we got the great album, you know. He plays a lot of the great songs live, you know, but when it comes to release, we're not hearing none of it, you know. Makes me really upset, you know. I love doing that voice. Yeah.
I love it when you do that voice.
Hey,
who is it, by the way? No, I'm joking. Have you guys ever seen it? I did see it at the time, and I didn't like it because it wasn't Doctor Who. I got very protective. It's like that whole thing with the tripods. You know, one of the main reasons I didn't like the tripods is because it wasn't Doctor Who, and I thought, don't put this on instead of Doctor Who. You might as well do Doctor Who. And likewise with this. I'd love to see it again, though. I
remember the trailers for it on the BBC. I can't say I remember watching it, but I remember the trailers.
I think I gave up on it.
I mean, is it online? Is it the type of thing that might be put online? Let's have a look.
Now, what is this a reference to? P.S. I'm with Benji. That major bloke, cough, definitely cough, was up to cough, no good with his coughing. What's that?
It was
about?
up to no good, wasn't he? The millionaire. You know, the major.
Sorry, I'd forgotten about quiz. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Take care, guys, and thanks for making me laugh. Neil, sent from my iPhone.
Pleasure.
Now, since I burdened you with 2 emails in a row, I'll do this one from Rick Davey from the Unmute Show. Are you still looking something up?
Yeah, they've got the whole of the invasion on, a lot of it on YouTube, so I might sit down and watch that. It looks quite good.
Good. Dear Benji and Nick, now I warn you, I haven't read this, but apparently it's really controversial. Sorry it's been so long since I've sent in an email. Hope you and yours are keeping well and safe during these uniquely scary times. Thanks so much for keeping us entertained during these dark days! ! Lovely to hear you're having special guests on the show of late. More, please. Perhaps you could revisit Tenko and have Louise Jameson on. Ooh. Anyway, been ages since Nick has been given the chance to admonish me live on air. So on to something much more controversial. Much as I love you both, I don't share your love of BritBox. As to me, it's an immoral entity. Oh, I can guess what he's going to say. People come out with this rubbish a lot. We're all TV licence fee payers, so I think it's wrong we should have to pay a second time to see BBC shows that we've already paid for. These shows should be free for all licence payers through iPlayer, not chargeable. Fair enough for the ITV shows, which were produced on a commercial basis, but BBC shows were not. Now, I know you could argue the same is true of buying BBC shows on DVD. I could, but at least with a DVD, you get physical features, a physical item to watch wherever you want, artwork, and the option to sell it again. Oh, interesting. Always with an eye on profit there. With BritBox, you don't. You just get the chance to pay again for something you have already paid for. It's just plain wrong, says Rick in a reasonable voice. What makes it even more galling and ironic is that you don't need a TV license to watch BritBox. Well, that's why you're paying then, isn't it, mate? Meaning that the people who didn't pay for the production of these programmes can have access to them if they pay £5, whilst those of us who pay £12 instead for a licence fee do not. Buck up! He didn't say buck up. There's then also the argument that models like Netflix and BritBox will kill channels like Talking Pictures TV who are trying to bring stuff to us for free to air. What sort of world are we living in where a 99-year-old has to do laps of his garden to fund our healthcare system? You can pay £120 for a train ticket and end up standing, and we have a poll tax to force us to pay for TV programmes to be made only to be told we have to pay again if we want to see it again. You could have recorded it. Even more controversially, I want to call a steward's inquiry into several recent editions of the Loch Ness game. Benji can clearly be heard saying goodness gracious on several occasions, meaning he should have lost those matches, as the word goodness can clearly be heard. The fact that the word gracious then follows it is irrelevant, yet was later declared the victor. On another occasion, a contestant was heard to say, "Good tidings we bring to you and the king," a completely invented phrase, as the words of the song are, "Good tidings we bring to you and your kin."
One could argue that does one even need to...
I think,
I could invent their own phrase.
I said good custard today. As long as you say it's with conviction and it involves the word good, it doesn't matter whether it's an invented phrase. But the goodness gracious thing, I think you're onto something there, Rick.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I will absolutely hold up my hands and
I think what you're saying is Benji's a bit of a cheat. I think that's what you're saying.
A bit. How dare
Steward's inquiry.
Dare you? There's no
Here's
such
Steward.
thing.
Let's
You
have an
can't cheat
inquiry.
at a game that you've part made the rules for. That's what I say.
Oh, no, yeah, I see. Many of us have betted away our savings on these recent matches. So I suspect this might all be part of some sort of wider scam. It's a bit like BritBox. In one recent match, I could definitely hear Steph coughing in the background at the right moments so that Nick would know when to say good gravy. And she was clearly looking nervous and not at the studio monitor. I hear that an adaptation of this sad era of our beloved national sport of the Loch Ness game will soon follow on ITV. Alistair McGowan as Nick Briggs and a young Tom Baker as Benji Clifford.
Yes.
This is brilliant.
Jeffrey Baildon just as everybody else, please.
Aye boy. Controversy over. That's the first time I've said aye boy and you haven't followed suit. That's quite incredible. There we go. So much love to you both. You're genuinely two of the loveliest people I've ever had the pleasure to meet. I was choked up with emotion then, Rick. And to have your company in my home for an hour or so each week on the Benji and Nick show, or B&N show as he abbreviates it to. I object to that abbreviation. Abbreviations, even though that's what I write on all the files. It's so important during these uncertain times. Don't forget, folks, stay home. Stay home. Listen to the Nick and Benji show. Protect the NHS. Rick.
Superb.
Well, what do you think about his point about BritBox?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say, Rick, we were bigging you up, weren't we, before this podcast? We were chatting amongst ourselves and saying how great you are. So we love you too, Rick. When it comes to the BritBox thing, we don't love you now, Rick. It's a tricky one. You know, I mean, one could say that have you paid for shows that were on when you weren't born? So, I mean, probably more so for me, but most of the stuff on there was around either when I wasn't a licensed payer or when I was not born. So technically I didn't pay for those shows, although one could, you know, by technicality. But do you know what? I just look at it this way. I actually look at it and think, I don't mind. I don't mind paying the money for it because I like.
It's a very small amount of money.
It's a small amount of money, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the ease of being able to switch on there and see them. You know, it's like the thrill of seeing new things on there. And you know, I'm an old. You know, I love stupid old programs and things like that. But like, I was genuinely thrilled to see that they've been uploading more old episodes of Corrie and stuff like that on there, and some really good ones. And so I thought, oh, that's great, you know, I'm getting to watch those. And so I don't mind, because I think it's £5. It's like £5 to go on a, you know, I don't know, play a game of bowling or something. It's like I thoroughly enjoy it when I do it, and it's like I don't mind paying £5 a month to kind of, you know, get all of that really. Well, and also, can I just say as well, also, yes. Putting all this stuff on the iPlayer whilst that is good, you know, that's going to be an expensive process to do. There needs to be some way of kind of justifying doing it at all. Otherwise, you wouldn't bother, would you really? But I can see what you're saying, and you know, Talking Pictures TV and people like that. Obviously, they're trying to do it for free, and you know. But having said that, I think they're two very different things. I don't know. Could be wrong. What do you think, Nick?
I think two things. One, you know, I'm willing to pay for the convenience. That's what I think. You know, because I can just watch half an episode of the
Visitation.
Sea Devils or Mark of the Rani this morning while I was just having my breakfast or getting dressed. And that's quite nice. I couldn't do that with a DVD. It's too much faff. I don't have a DVD player in my room. Well, I have a drive. And you know, it's just great to be able to do that. So I'm prepared to pay for the convenience of it. The other thing is the license fee is to pay... it's a yearly, as he says, poll tax. You know, the license fee for television sounds really weird to anyone who lives outside the UK, and increasingly to people who do live in the UK, because every other television channel is funded in a different way. But it's just the precedent was set to pay for television, you know, through the state, as it were. That seems old-fashioned now. People still do it, and it's still the law to do it. There's talk of decriminalising not paying a license fee, because at the moment it's a criminal offence. The money is for the general funding of the BBC. It's not for specific programs. You can't break it down. It doesn't say 10 pence of this is for Doctor Who and 20 pence is for, the newsreader's haircut or whatever. It's just a general contribution. So I don't think you say you've paid for particular programs by it. It's just it's a sort of tax, I suppose, as you say. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think tax is a good idea because it's in society, tax creates civilized values because it means society can pay for important things that you couldn't rely on for private individuals to fund. Private individuals only fund things when times are good. When times are hard, they're going to look to themselves. So I don't think it's as simple as that. And I think also that because in real terms, I think the BBC's funding gets cut year on year. I think it's fine for the BBC to look at commercial means of getting in money, I think. And when you've got a vast archive like they've got, I think it's perfectly reasonable for the BBC in a very modest way to monetize it. It's a very small amount you pay to BritBox. I think it's fine. I think I had this argument. I sort of fell out with one of my best friends over this when I started doing Big Finish. He said, I refuse to buy Big Finish. Doctor Who belongs to us. We paid for it. And now you're expecting me to pay extra money for new Doctor Who on audio. That's criminal. And I just thought, well, you're nuts. It's just crazy. It's just an excuse not to join in, I think, just to get a sort of, get on your high horse about something like that. Not that I'm saying that about you, Rick, but I would criticise BritBox because I think the interface, the headline, the website is pretty rubbish and is unreliable and does all sorts of peculiar things. Have you found that, Benji? Since
I've been the website, certainly. But since I've
been misbehaves so much. It's just they really need a much better website and a better IT people. But I applaud the fact that it exists.
Since using the apps actually and on my smart TV and my PS4, I have to say actually fine. I haven't got any problems. I tend to watch it all on there now. Really, comfort of my sofa. So I've not had a problem there. But yeah, the website's pretty pokey.
Yes, I don't have access to those apps. What do the apps work on?
Have you got a smart TV?
I haven't. No, it's quite a
got a
thick
Fire
TV.
Stick?
No.
You got
I almost don't know what
Apple
that is.
TV?
No.
Have you got any form of device like that? Have you got PS4?
Yes.
So it would work on PS4.
I'm not allowed to use the PS4 because my son only uses it once a month. But whenever I want to play a Blu-ray on it, he treats it like I will be fouling on his lawn.
Well, then it looks
no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're not using it. Anyway.
Well, there we go.
But thank you, Rick. Always an interesting debate. And may I wholeheartedly send loads of love to you and say that you're one of the most genuinely lovely people I've met in a long time. And we really enjoy your company. And well, of course, you sponsor our podcast, sort of, don't you? So this sounds like a ridiculous love-in. Here are some questions. Email questions for next week, folks. This is what we would like you to write in and answer. It's just for fun, really. Let me know, and then it just says "and knack" on the script. What does that mean?
There's no.
Let me know and knack. I think I just leant on the keyboard. Anyway, question 1 is
answers. It should be, shouldn't it? I expect.
Let me know your answers. Let me know your and knacks. Question 1 is the Doctor Who story Mark of the Rani a pleasant surprise? 2, what are your true feelings about Aquamarina? 3, what are these strange enchantments that start whenever you're near? 4, does anyone remember the Aeronauts and Desert Crusader? What's the French title of that?
Finbad ou les Croisades.
Something like that. Croisade.
Finbad ou les Croisades. Croisade. That'd be it, wouldn't it?
That's it. We're rubbish at French.
Les Croisades.
Yes.
Yes. But French is much more fun to read out. If you read
Tybalt or the Crusades was the original title, which is a fantastic title, actually. Who's your favourite Quatermass? That was question 5. Question 6. what do you know about the long chase? And question 7, what are your best Loch Ness moves? Now, please do write to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com with your answers to those questions and anything else you want to say. And, pick a question, pick all the questions. But those are the questions we want to hear the answers to. Thank you very much. Time to talk about Press Gang from 1989, you said.
89 to 93.
89 to 93. So this was created by Stephen Moffat, or written by Stephen Moffat. It says it's from an idea by Bill Moffat, who I must presume was his father, do you think?
I saw Bill Moffat and thought it must be somebody in the family.
I remember seeing a behind-the-scenes item about it with Stephen looking painfully young. Stephen and I are the same age. He's slightly younger than me. I discovered to my dismay in the last year or so. So now we rib each other about our ages. Yes. Well, I'll start off. Benji has some slightly controversial things to say about it. I remember watching it at the time occasionally, but I was far too old for it. It was intended for a younger age group. But I remember just catching it on a Sunday afternoon and thinking, to me, it felt like it was, everything about it felt like it was an American show. It was shot on film. It had specially composed incidental music. It was quite stylishly shot. The acting was of a very high caliber. And it seemed to be very sassy and witty. So it was weird. I thought, everything about this feels American, and yet it's English. And all the teenage characters are behaving like adults and speaking like adults and are wittier than children are, I thought, at the time. So I found it odd but strangely seductive. I found myself getting caught up with the sort of Dexter Fletcher's character, Spike's character's sort of on-off love affair with Julia Sawala's character, which I can't remember the name of her character now. But I mean, I know friends of mine who are
Linda Day. There we go.
Linda Day was her character name. That friends of mine, she wasn't a friend of mine, Linda Day, because she was fictional. Friends of mine who are slightly younger than me, like Jason Haig-Ellery, who's 8 or 9 years younger than me. And, I've got a lot of friends that much younger than me, remember watching this when they were the right age to watch it, and they love it. Big Finish, the company, the name of the company is taken from the title of an episode from Press Gang. From Press Gang. Yeah.
Look at that, eh?
So that's how much Jason likes it. And loads of people remember it very, very fondly. But yeah, it's a sort of odd fit for me. So watching it again was interesting. And I thought all those things again, in a way. I thought this is such a bizarre thing. It's the thing that I really take away from it. 2 things. It's really stylishly done. I mean, it's faultless. It's not like watching a lot of old telly when you just go, oh, God, what are they thinking? It's beautifully done, immaculately done. And it's full of all... Stephen Moffat's best stroke worst jokes, isn't it? I mean, all those funny lines are in there, and there's such wit in it. Yeah, he's a very funny man, and so it's not really for me. It wasn't for me back then, and it's not for me now. But it has a strange, yes, it seduces me. It is blooming good entertainment, I think. You don't think that, though, do you, Benji?
I do. The one thing that really just... I found it hard to concentrate because I just couldn't stand Dexter Fletcher's accent. I just could not stand it. It was just utterly grating on me. And it ruined it. It kind of brought everything else down a little bit for me because I was just too busy sort of cringing at it. But no, as a piece, I mean, when it all, the music in it's great. It's really, really cool. It's got that... It reminds me a little bit of that kind of Saved by the Bell kind of vibe. Like that kind of... I
don't think I ever saw Saved by the Bell, did I?
Like an American kind of... It's more of a... Saved by the Bell is more of a comedy. But it's got that kind of... It's kind of cool for kids. Like it's kind of... You get the feeling it's kind of a little bit cool and hip. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say like it's very funny and in a sophisticated way that's not kind of... as we always say, I can't stand things that are sort of silly and patronising. It's not that at all. I mean, obviously, you can in this first episode, you can see that Steve clearly loves his science fiction. There's Doctor Who references.
Yeah, there is something. Yes,
Star
trespassers
Wars.
will be. Yes, trespassers will be exterminated.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's you can so tell that. But yeah, I think I go with you in saying it's sophisticated, isn't it? It is.
Yeah, for a kids program.
For a kids program, I think it has a level. Even in production, it feels.
Oh yeah, beautifully done, isn't it?
I mean, I tell you, just as an example, but like, I know I always harping on about it, but like, at the moment, I've been watching loads of Coronation Street, and I'm on 1988, and the difference in production of a show that you would think would, like Coronation Street has been going on for ages, they look like it's like parallel worlds when you see this. 1988 Coronation Street feels like it's still in 1973 in the way it looks and the way it's all put together, whereas this. This is 1989. We're just about to enter a new decade, and it feels like modern. It feels like
it's so polished, isn't it? I mean, that's why when I saw it at the time, I thought, "What? I'd never seen anything quite so stylish in a kid's slot." To be quite frank, a kids' TV slot.
I think Julia Sawalha wins it for me in terms of performance. She's just great in this, and I mean, there are quite a few people in this, but she certainly stands out for me.
There are loads of people you recognise from movie careers later.
Oh, definitely. Well, that's the thing. You look at these people, and using her as an example, you're watching this the first time, you might not know her because she's very young in this. You think, yep, she's going to have a great career. We're going to be seeing her on our telly in a couple of years. And interesting, the thing that I just couldn't gel with, and it really lowered the whole quality of watching it, was just the character of Spike. Just that accent, it just kept throwing me off.
But don't you think it's because he's not American? When I first saw it, that was my only experience of him. I'd never seen him in anything else before. So I think
I could tell the accent wasn't a real American accent. I just couldn't. It just couldn't register with me. I just couldn't deal with it. But I like it's funny because sort of as a kid, growing up. Those were the sort of, I remember in the night, there were kind of kids with that sort of swagger at school. Certainly at primary school anyway, not so much secondary school, but there were kids with swagger and that. And you can tell that he's a bit like, who's that character in Grange Hill? Tucker.
Yeah.
They end up becoming this sort of lovable rogue, and he goes on to be that, really, doesn't he?
Do you think that they made the character American because they were hoping for American distribution? And maybe even tried to get an American actor, but couldn't get one.
Possibly. I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
Because Dexter Fletcher's a very successful director now, isn't he?
He's absolutely, titanic in the scale. He's done some amazing projects. So maybe you're right. I mean, it just stuck out. I suppose the awful thing, it just stuck out like a sore thumb for me, amidst everybody else who was incredible in doing what they're doing. So
it does seem a bit fake to me now, but I forgive it because his performance is good.
Yeah, he does. I know, yeah, absolutely. He does give it his all in there. And I'm just, I was watching it with a critical eye, I suppose, sitting down and that. But as a whole piece, I mean, it's very enjoyable. It's very sophisticated, and what a breath of fresh air, quite frankly.
Oh.
In a world of where in a world where television, but a world where television for kids.
I thought you were going to be much more negative about it, Benji.
No, that was my negative thing just before.
Oh, no.
That was my negative thing. I just said it just made it really hard for me to enjoy it the same.
And Clive Wood in it as well, who I recently worked with in The Human Frontier, that's coming out later this month. Clive Wood plays the editor of the grown-ups newspaper.
The proper newspaper.
It's interesting to see him there, looking swish in his cowboy boots.
A real cool character as well. A real cool dude, isn't he? I think he drives a Morgan.
Yeah, I thought it was a Morgan, yes. Which
I love
my wife covets.
The actual set of the press room. If it's probably location, I don't know, but the actual way it is, it's really cool because it opens up. You think, wow, that's different.
Well, they do that big high shot and tilting feels, down, behind the. Yeah.
You sort of dream of having a little base like that at your school, don't you? Whereas in reality, it would probably be in a little tiny, cruddy old room.
Well, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because the newspaper place the kids' newspaper seems to be at the newspaper offices and not at the school. They didn't quite establish the different locations for me.
Yeah, no,
I'm nitpicking about nonsense here. But the other thing I liked about it is the plot was really well structured. I mean, you could sort of see it working. You think, oh, hold on a sec. She thinks that this guy's... Because a guy comes in and says, I have got an absolutely scandalous story about toys that threaten people's lives. And Dexter Fletcher's character said, oh, I've got a story about the local disco being shut down. Have you got any quotes? No. What's your evidence? Well, the bloke denied it. I think, oh, God, right. So she blows him out of the water, and she's focused on this guy who's going to tell her about the deadly toys, and he ends up pulling a Millennium Falcon out of his bag to say, here it is, based on the American defense system Star Wars. I cannot believe that, and the look on their faces. They build it up so much, they're heading for a fall. You think she's going to have to go back cap in hand to him. And, in common with what was the other series that Stephen did that people said was like the British Friends, but wasn't? Coupling.
Yeah.
There's a sort of traumatic relationship, a love-hate type of relationship at the centre of it, and it's going to be between Spike and Linda, isn't it? But then I remember thinking
that energy between them almost immediately in this. I really enjoyed that kind of closing section where they sort of like, okay, well,
Oh, you had their voiceovers over the closing credits, don't you?
Yeah, like that. Like all of that is quite nice. That,
Yeah, when I heard a voice starting, I thought, are they preserving the original continuity links here? Or?
But it's the little touches like that which I think actually works in Press Gang's favour. And pretty much, as we've already said, there's more to it than just another kids show. And little touches like that make you feel like actually there's a lot of thinking behind it. Like people actually go, wouldn't it be great if we did that? Rather than the attitude of like, oh, it's just a kids show, we'll do this, that, the other, then just roll the credits and, it's job done, money in the bank. I want to work on something else,
I remember finding it a little bit icky at the time that, because of course when there's a romance in a TV programme, you either are for it or against it, and you think, oh no, and you say, oh, I'd love those two to get together, oh, why don't those two get together? But these are children, and suddenly you find yourself worrying about children sort of getting together. I know they're teenagers and probably played by actors who were older than the ages they were playing, but I just remember thinking, oh, this is a bit weird. I don't know whether I should be concerned about the romantic intentions of teenagers. But you know what I mean? It felt a bit strangely voyeuristic. And I got a touch of that again, watching it again today, thinking, oh, I don't know how I'm supposed to react to this. It sounds like I'm just being weird, doesn't it?
Again, it's got that Saved by the Bell vibe, isn't it? In Saved by the Bell, they're all dating each other and all that. But I suppose at the same time, kids do get together.
I've never seen... I don't know what Saved by the Bell is, so I don't know really what you're talking about.
Well, it's just an American sort of show, but kids do get together, and it's all about that at school. So at least they're kind of, I suppose, at least it's mentioning something rather than it being sort of twee. But yeah, I do agree. You watch it and kind of think a bit like, ooh. But then they look a lot older. Certainly,
Officer. Yeah.
Officer.
Awful. Yeah, and I've mentioned before the series Bunch of Fives, haven't I? Which I remember seeing this and thinking, oh, this is a bit like that kids series, A Bunch of Fives, from when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, 1975. We looked it up before. Have you looked it up? A Bunch of Fives.
I'll have a look now.
It's a TV series about kids running a school newspaper. Not quite the same thing.
1970s English children's television show, precursor of Grange Hill.
There you go. And it starred the guy who played Varsh in Full Circle. That's a Doctor Who story. Can't believe anyone listening doesn't know that. But you could be wrong.
You could be wrong. Yeah. I'm just looking now to see. No, it's got what's his name in it? Jamie Foreman, who's been in a million.
Oh
things.
yeah, he was. Yes, that's right.
Jamie Foreman.
He was in The Idiot's Lantern as well. He
is an interesting person, isn't it? Gary Oldman.
He was in it as well.
Yeah, apparently.
A Bunch of Fives. Well, up
Jamie
and coming
Foreman,
actor.
Andrew Rinu, Richard Willis, Richard Mays, Chris Sanders, Jennifer Hill.
Are these people of any significance?
I mean,
just reading out random names.
I'm trying to find the bloke that was in Full Circle. Richard Willis, who was in the Doombolt Chase, Feathered Carpet. I don't know. Whatever.
The Feathered Carpet.
The feathered. Oh no, it's the what? No, it's the Feathered Serpent. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was going to say the Feathered Serpent, which starred Patrick
Why did I say
Troughton.
the Feathered Carpet?
I have no idea.
What an absolute mentalist. Yes, it was Richard Willis was Varsh.
I've sent an invitation to Jamie Anderson to join us.
And will he join us? Will he or won't he?
Hello, Jamie Anderson.
Hello, Nick Briggs and Benji Clifford.
Hello, Jamie Anderson.
How are you both?
Well, yeah, very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Pretty good, thank you. I assume Benji was speaking on behalf of Nick there as well.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, he's well.
I have a very, 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 very important question.
Right.
Benji, how was your hot pot?
Heard about that earlier.
We were chatting yesterday, and we had to go. I said, I've got to make my hot pot now, and it was lovely. Actually, it turned out brilliantly. It was very easy to make and very, very nice, and just stayed in the oven, did its thing, came out, and it was delectable.
What a clever little hot pot.
Tell us the recipe and the method, please.
Oh, it's super easy, super easy. I just chopped up an onion.
Chopped up an onion.
1.5 onions. Chopped
One
up
and a half onions.
2 carrots.
2 carrots.
Then you add the
2 carrots a pound.
2 carrots a pan. Here we go, love. You put a bit of oil on that, shove that in the oven. It actually says to do it on the hob.
Is that it? Carrot and onion?
Well, wait
Done.
for it. I did it this way, but I just shoved it in the oven for about a couple of minutes.
You didn't fry the onions?
I didn't bother. I just didn't bother. I could have done, but I just did it this way. I just couldn't be bothered to fry anything.
Did it the wrong way?
I did it my way. I just did it how I wanted to do it.
The wrong way, yeah.
Then I did some lamb. I put some lovely bits of lamb in there. Put that in for about 5 minutes. Took it out. Then added in the lamb. added in the lamb
Jamie
stock.
making this.
Lamb stock, bit of thyme, some bay leaves. Seasoned it, salt, pepper, etc., etc., and then layered it with sliced potato.
Ooh.
So lots of sliced potato. Made it like you make a kind of little sort of cover for it, and then sprinkled a few more herbs on top. Shoved it in the oven, put it on about 120. Just left it for as long as it needed. And I'll tell you one thing. Despite the recipe saying all this stuff like fry it and do this, the lamb was it was at that that level of lamb I can only describe it when it falls off the bones, sort of delicious. There were no bones in this, but it was that level of like breaking up. It was perfect.
Falling off the metaphorical bones.
Yes,
lamb,
it was. That's
lamb level 9. Whoa.
For
level
all
9
vegetarians listening, I'd like to
Yes,
apologise.
I do apologise to vegetarians. Maybe there's a vegetarian hot pot. Maybe I could make one.
Of course there is.
That background.
Jamie, that's weird. Did you just see that?
I did it to Benji
Jamie's on
yesterday.
Zoom. It's fantastic.
So good.
He's on
So
Zoom,
good.
and his Zoom background is a video of him walking around in his room. That was really weird for a moment. I was looking at Jamie. I wonder why you were looking at me in that kind of, is he going to notice sort of way.
Yes, that was too
and then there
obvious,
was another Jamie in the background. It was very good.
So clever.
That's just weird seeing you. It's the creeping out bit that's funny.
I'll stop it. I'm so sorry for distracting everybody.
It's very good. That's good. You see, I've got a Bunsen burner behind me.
Why have you got a Bunsen burner?
Benji and I were having a conversation about wearing white coats, but that was that in another podcast? That was in another podcast.
That wasn't even in a podcast. It was just us talking.
Was it? But my life's a podcast.
Clearly.
So now we've had the lowdown on the Lancashire hot pot. Very good. Very good.
Yes, email us in pictures of your hot pots.
Please, we'd like to see your hot pots or your favourite recipes, things you like to eat while you're watching cult television. Jamie, there's some questions that we've asked people to email in about, and I'd just like your instant answers to these.
Uh-oh.
1. Is the Doctor Who story Mark of the Rani a pleasant surprise?
No.
2. What are your true feelings about Aqua Marina?
A bit annoying, needy.
3. What are these strange enchantments that start whenever you're near?
I'm not sure they're safe for work or for a podcast. I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
4. Does anyone remember the Aeronauts and Desert Crusader?
No.
You speak for everyone there, do you?
Yes,
and
I do.
Who's your favourite Quatermass?
Oh, I've got no idea. Never seen it.
6. God. Why is he our friend? What do you know about The Long Chase?
I feel like I've arrived on an alien planet where people are saying things I don't understand.
Have you eaten Bingle Bongles lately?
7. What are your best Loch Ness moves? Total blank.
I just did it.
Oh, you just did a Loch Ness.
Yeah, it was very good as well.
You just did the Loch Ness Monster. Oh dear.
Very good.
Very good. That was good. Have you heard our Loch Ness game at the beginning of the podcast?
I have not heard your Loch Ness game at the beginning of the podcast.
Well, there you go. It's not about Loch Ness and it's not a game. Thank you, Jamie.
Sounds incredible.
What are your thoughts about what we should do next time?
Are you sure you want them? I mean,
we won't necessarily abide by them.
I think you should go a bit crazy.
Well, it's not hard for us, is it?
And then watch something. No, I think because you normally do a telly episode or something, don't you? Why can you do a film?
We can do film.
Yes.
We have done films. Yeah.
Could you do a 1980s horror film?
Why not?
John Carpenter's The Thing.
It's an iconic film, isn't it?
Well, I'd definitely go for that.
Watch on
you should
Amazon.
definitely watch that. It's so fun.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Absolutely.
Why not?
I've got
Yeah,
lots
we'll
of memories of when I first saw The Thing, but that's a whole other... Yeah, well, I'll tell those next time. Thank you, Jamie. That's great. Have you got anything else to add before Benji asks you a randomly generated question?
We haven't done that for a while, have we?
No,
Yeah, it's back to the old days.
No, just the Thing and Arachnophobia and that. What's the? I mentioned it before. The thing with the
Tremors.
Those 3 films.
I could see just by the hand movement you were doing, you meant Tremors.
Yeah, those are the 3 films that I used to watch with Dad when I was a kid, and they were repeated on various channels across kind of holiday periods, normally Christmas, New Year. So they are. They're sort of quite meaningful to me.
Arachnophobia, yeah, that is a terrifying film.
Yeah.
I'd say my favourite, if we're talking horror, my favourite horror film is definitely the original Halloween, which I think is an absolute masterpiece. I think it's a masterpiece of filmmaking.
I mean, I don't like horror as a genre. I mean, I love that it exists, but I'm not comfortable with it. I've told Jamie before that the screening for Arachnophobia, I went to the press screening of it, and they asked us to reach under the seat. I think it was before we watched it. It might have been after. No, it must have been before. To reach under the seat. And they put baskets full of straw underneath. You had to put your hand in this bucket or basket to pull something out. And we're all terrified because they really hyped us up about the whole arachno. And I am quite arachnophobic. I can't comfortably look at a spider for too long. And this shed is infested with jumping spiders, you know.
Oh, God.
You know, those little ones that jump. So occasionally I get a little tickle on my head and it's a jumping spider has jumped off the ceiling onto my head.
Oh, that's cute. To stroke you.
Yeah.
To stroke you.
I don't kill them because my wife is very against killing
She's a well-known
spiders.
arachnophile.
She is. She would let... Oh, I can't even bear to think of it. But yeah, she would let them crawl all over her.
In her mouth, up her nose... Caress her eyeballs, yeah.
I don't think anyone wants anything to caress their eyeballs, no matter how much they love them. You know.
What about opticians?
Yeah, I was going to say an optometrist.
I don't want them to caress my eyeballs. Have you got the random question?
Yeah, Jamie. What's the most paranormal thing that has happened to you?
Oh,
apart from this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this might be the peak. I think. There was that thing. It's not really paranormal. Oh God, what was it? I've told you about this, Nick, before. I was going to a meeting, and the night before, I had a very odd dream about a particular plate. Right, okay, this is the weird thing. So, I was having an anxiety dream about a meeting I was going to the next day, and it involved Dad. And in the dream, I was at home. It was night time, and there was weird crashing and smashing downstairs. And Mum said, "Go and see what it is." I went downstairs, and it was Dad, and he was smashing plates. We had like decorative plates on the wall, and he was throwing them down and smashing them, pulling them all off the wall and smashing them. Woke up. Oh, that was strange. Got dressed for my meeting. Went to the meeting. Got off the tube at Hammersmith. And as I was crossing the road, a young girl, I don't know, late teens, early 20s, looking a bit dishevelled, as I was crossing the road, stopped right in front of me, stared at me and went, "Plates!" And then carried on walking across the road.
Oh, that is horrible. That's weird. That is really weird.
Wow, and you never found out who she was or why she said it?
No, but I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's obviously coincidence, but it's so weird.
Well, why would she have said plates to you, though?
I don't know. That's why it was weird. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you this story.
And she wasn't just remembering plates. She wasn't thinking, "Oh, plates! I must go and buy some plates."
Well, maybe
she looked at you, and
but no, there was eye contact.
I thought you were going to say she said, "Have a smashing day."
She hit you over the head with a plate.
Yes.
She smashed one in front of me. No, she just said, quite loud, "Plates!"
Ooh.
That is quite, interesting. It is a coincidence, as you say, but coincidences can be
construed as the paranormal. Yeah.
Interesting.
That is very strange. I like it. Plates.
That's a weird thing to share on a podcast for anyone to listen to, but there we go.
But when things like that happen, it is odd.
Yeah, I'm going to ask now that if any listener of yours ever bumps into me in the street, they don't do that for fun. They don't think, "Oh, I know it would be really funny if I got to him and shout plates in his face." Because
you just know that Rick Davey is going to say that.
There's a couple of people I think who might. So I look forward to your plate shouting.
Good. Well, thank you for that, Jamie. I think it's time for us to move close to the microphones.
Asked.
No, I think it's fascinating. Yeah. Next week will be...
should we see who's on the end of this phone? I've just been called.
Say goodbye.
Hello?
Hello, is that Mr. Clifford?
It certainly is. Who's this?
Afternoon, sir. Sorry to disturb you. It's just Liam calling from your lotto service. I'm just calling today regarding the National Lottery.
Yes.
You've been given a gesture, Steve, actually, 10 free entries for the National Lottery on Saturday the 25th of May. Can I send them to yourself at number 43 Cranston Avenue?
No, I don't live there, actually.
Have you moved?
I've moved, yeah. I never lived there, actually,
right.
but I have moved, yeah.
Right, I mean, what's the postcode where you're living? I can get them sent there.
Hold on a minute. I'll just.
Yeah, no.
He's just going to get a random postcode now, isn't he?
Yeah, hung up now.
So what was he trying to do?
I don't know. Apparently, he got 10 free entries to the National Lottery. I just don't believe it.
No, he wants your postcode. Why did he want your postcode?
So he can have your address, to send you some promotional mailing nonsense.
Yeah. I just got the microphone and went like that, sort of, on my shirt to make it sound as I was clattering around.
Nice.
And then he hung up.
Oh, he's phoning back.
Oh, Mr. Clifford, unfortunately, we seem to be cut off there.
I can't believe I'm not going to.
I thought you were going to look up a fake postcode to give him.
SW1 1AA.
Let's see, 487 1859. Let's just see if it's a real number. Who it is? Is it a scammer? Here we go. So what is the number listed here? It's saying online. Sorry, listeners, this is really throwing you all off. 87 1859. Yeah, here we go. Unknown number. Do we know who this is? Security level 90% secure. Okay, maybe it is the National Lottery. Oh well.
Jamie has died against his microphone.
No, anyway, yes. Here we go. So, goodbye.
Yes, and it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye. Well, I've gone behind a fried egg.
Oh, plates. Nice plates you've got there.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.